show starting right now on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're about to drop 2 hours straight of start-sit questions, including we're also going to be breaking down the latest injuries, not just from skill position groups, but offensive line, defense, things that you need to know before setting your lineup, including the weather reports. Is there any rain in the forecast today? We're going to be breaking this down and more starting right now on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. All right, listen, at this point, Sky is not here to defend himself, so I'm going to say that now. I'm going to introduce my right-hand man. That's right. Matt has gotten the nod. Move from the left side to the right because officially this guy has stepped up the most so far this year. Matt, what's going on, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, good morning. I woke up with a little bit of allergies because I actually did some work in the yard yesterday, but I'm here for the people, right? We're going to power through. And you'll see if my head smashes the keyboard, it's because I did take an allergy pill. But just you've got my Med Alert bracelet info, so just call the doc if something happens.
I appreciate. You know, it's funny. I didn't specify when I said injury report. I didn't specify whether it should be your own injury report and or just like general fantasy football players. But yes, no,
I'm sorry. I misunderstood that.
No, it's okay. It's totally fine. Before we even start to get into this today, obviously today we're going to break down some of the key injuries that people need to know before setting their lineups. But let's also talk a little bit about some of the trades. I know a lot of people this week, I know we had Derek and Matt and Sky, break down some of this trade stuff. So, but let's get it from you because we also have prior trades. We have Kadarius Toney, we have Jeff Wilson, we have Chase Edmonds, TJ Hawkinson. These guys that all move. I'm just talking specifically fantasy relevant players. Is there a certain player that traded teams that you're looking forward to the most this week or concerned about?
So the two names that stick out to me, you mentioned one is Hawkinson. I'm still just kind of floored that Detroit just seems to never be able to get it right. This guy was putting up pretty decent numbers with a really bad team. I think this is exactly what Captain Kirk needs in Minnesota. And you know me, right? I'm a Packers fan, so this one stings. And I don't know if you saw the word out of the Green Bay experts this morning. But it appears as if Green Bay was not in on Hawkinson at all because they're trying to trade for Darren Waller. And apparently based on money, Waller's not an issue for our atrocious salary cap issues. But apparently those talks are still in the works. Now, Waller hasn't seen the field since 2008, so I don't know if he's going to be worth anything. But he's a game changer when he's healthy, when he's playing. So but Hawkinson really, and then, the couple of guys on defense change my opinion a little bit if you're going to be streaming defenses, especially Bradley Chubb and Roquan Smith moving. I think Philly's D is one that you probably don't even have to stream. I think you just start them and you feel good. I don't know that Denver's going to be the same with the loss of Chubb, but their defense has been pretty good all year. Kadarius Toney, we'll see. Andy Reid finds a way to put these weird gadget plays in for everybody and said he's going to play today. They've got some packages for him. Word out of Minnesota is that Hawkinson is going to play a lot, whatever a lot means, I don't know. But Kevin O'Connell seems to be all on board and getting him into the mix early. And Irv Smith, I believe, had a significant ankle. I think it's an ankle injury. So Hawkinson is the one that's going to fill that void for Kirk Cousins. And by the way, Minnesota seems to be able to score on anybody not named Philadelphia Eagles. So I think Hawkinson just adds to that.
Yeah. I think, when you even start going into like Robbie Anderson and what's his impact going to be for the Cardinals, because now think about the Cardinals are a weird team where they traded for Marquise Hollywood Brown. He gets hurt. And then as soon as that happens, they get DeAndre Hopkins back, but then they add Robbie Anderson. So it's like, there seems there's going to be just once Marquise Brown comes back in the next month or so, that's going to be tough. I think it's going to be Hopkins, obviously the totem pole, but you got Rondale Moore. AJ Green has been phased out. You got Zach Ertz. As a Zach Ertz person, I have a lot of Zach Ertz. I'm actually kind of concerned for him because once we get closer to playoff time, there's a lot of mouths to feed in that Cardinals offense, and they're not humming, really. I mean, really, it's really just been Hopkins the last 2 weeks. And Rondell Moore has played well as too, but I just think it's going to be a lot of mouths to feed. You got James Robinson with the Jets. Like, he's now dealing with knee issues again. Michael Carter could be someone that a lot of people overlooked in this trade deadline because they did get James Robinson, but Robinson's now dealing with knee issues again. And so Michael Carter could be someone that really down the stretch on it. By the way, a Jets team that's competitive. They are winning football games. That I think that Michael Carter is someone that's been overlooked in this whole aspect because he knows the offense. He's been there for multiple years, year and a half, essentially, with this coaching staff. Of course, CMC going to the 49ers has been glorious, by the way. As a CMC owner in a league, I actually love that. But the one that I think that I wanted to talk about first was Chase Claypool because, Justin Fields. So here's the thing about Justin Fields. I was high. So I feel like when you're high on a player preseason, you look at them through rose-colored glasses. So you want them to, as soon as they start doing well, you just latch onto it. And that's what's happened to Justin Fields. I was into him early on. I had him as a QB2 in a bunch of leagues. I actually dropped him after like week 3 or 4, whatever it was, when things weren't looking up. And then I've really picked him back up. He's my starting quarterback across the board, pretty much in like 5 of 7 leagues this week. He's my starting quarterback. But with Chase Claypool just offers, I understand that Chase Claypool doesn't really play his size. He's not like this big time contested catch, scoring a bunch of touchdowns. Like but the thing is, I would say about Chase Claypool is, number one, Big Ben was just washed at the end. Like after the elbow injury, Mason Rudolph wasn't it. Then it was Big Ben post elbow. He was throwing all these dink and dunk passes to Deontay Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster. And then, this year with Mitch Trubisky / Kenny Pickett, there was not a single situation where you think, okay, this is a good combination for Chase. Justin Fields can sling it and he can throw it deep. But I like it more for Justin Fields specifically. I like the fact that now they have more talent on the outside with Mooney, with Cole Kmet, with that running game. But also what I love the most is that they're gutting the defense, because one of the bigger issues for Justin Fields was game flow, because the Bears defense is good and then their offense was run centric. So it wasn't really offering much upside. But now when you trade away, their top defensive ends are now gone. Obviously Khalil Mack earlier was traded this offseason, but they have gutted that defensive line. Essentially Robert Quinn now gone as well, and Roquan Smith at linebacker. I think that's going to help the game flows. I think the Bears defense will take a little bit of a step back. Don't get me wrong. I believe in Matt Eberflus. The guy knows how to coach defense. But I think it'll take a little bit of a step back. And then this week you get Miami. Like Miami's is red hot on offense. So I'm excited about that for Justin Fields, really. But overall, I think this has been fun. I feel like trade deadline was never a thing in the NFL. And now it's like this year it was like everyone. Jeff Wilson, by the way. Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert has not been – we've been big on Raheem Mostert on this podcast, but he has really – it's been a lot of empty, like 12 for 50 stat lines. Like he hasn't really blown up in any game because really I think the passing game has been so good. But I think Jeff Wilson, I would be interested to see if Jeff Wilson can really eat into Mostert's role a little bit. Do you have any thoughts about Jeff Wilson versus Raheem Mostert this week?
Yeah, so I was a Mostert fan and wanted nothing to do with Chase Edmonds. And then over the weeks, you could see that I was right about Chase Edmonds. He just was not. I mean, the guy, he basically traded himself out of Miami by dropping every pass that was thrown to him the week before the trade happened. But you're right. Mostert is just, he's the guy we all sit on the edge of our seat when he gets a handoff, because you're waiting for him to pop through the other side of the line and go 60, 70 yards. But he just hasn't done that. He can do that, I guess, any time he gets the ball. But we call it in the military, right? If you're waiting on the hope COA, right, the course of action called hope, and most of the time you don't benefit from that. So I think Jeff Wilson he might be the sneaky addition through trade at this deadline that nobody's really talking about, because he's proven he can carry the load. And I was wrong. I wanted nothing to do with the guy after Eli Mitchell went down, but he showed that he can kind of survive, and he's not always been healthy. But I think if he and Mostert can go like two-headed committee type, they can both be really valuable. And Wilson can catch the ball. Mostert can catch the ball. The problem with that right now is Tua doesn't need to throw to anybody but the 3 people. right? Waddle,
Mhm.
Hill, and Gesicki. He doesn't need to throw to anybody else. And I don't know how Tyreek Hill at 5'1" is a guy that contests every catch. I just don't know how he does it. I'm
I
shocked.
know.
It just amazes me, right? He doesn't seem to be jumping out of the building, but every single ball that seems to be a pop fly, somehow he's in the right spot, jumping at the right time with the right hands. I was wrong on him too. Leaving Kansas City, I thought, he's not going to be the guy. I was right on Waddle. I own Waddle everywhere, probably to the point of it being offensive that I have so many shares of him. But
Okay.
I think if Tua stays upright, Tua stays healthy, Tua continues to slide, Jeff Wilson will benefit and those receivers will benefit. And by the way, if Wilson does hit a little bit, those receivers are going to be even more valuable because you can't double team the guys. You're going to have to put run defenders. And I think the Bears are probably going to get boat raced this week, which leads back to your Justin Fields being an optimal quarterback pick because he's going to run and run and run and run. Yeah, I look for Fields to get 90 to 100 yards on the ground.
That's perfect segue because Brian, hello, good sir, jumps in, and his first question of the day is half PPR, Justin Fields or Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow post Jamar Chase did not really do a lot. I mean, they did connect with T. Higgins late in that game, but he was okay. But so are you going to go with the known commodity of Joe Burrow or the potential upside of Justin Fields in this matchup?
To me, it's not a decision to me until I heard you this morning and I really thought about it. For me, it's always going to be Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I think he's way cooler. Number two, I'm a Packers fan, so I can't really in good conscience recommend a Bears player. But for me, I prefer the old Joe Montana passing quarterback style. And I've only drafted a running quarterback once, and he did really well. It was Kyler Murray a couple of years ago. But for me, I think it's Burrow, right? I think they're coming into the bye next week. Mixon hasn't been great, so they have to continue to throw. Burrow wasn't great. When Chase comes back, he's going to be back to himself. But I guess it would come down to what's the matchup that this guy has to. Does he need the floor or does he need the ceiling? Because I think that Fields with the rushing yards could give you 9 to 10 extra points, where Burrow's going to give you 1 point rushing. But Fields is not going to throw 3 touchdowns. It's just not going to happen. Where Burrow could throw 4 and rush for 1. So to me, it's Burrow. I know I'm not giving a definitive answer backed with a lot of statistics and analysis. For me, it's always going to be Burrow.
Yeah, the problem I have is that this Carolina thing is like last week. I think a lot of people saw that Atlanta game, and Atlanta's been an absolute train wreck on defense. And then it grew into this beautiful high scoring game. Now, Cincinnati's dealing with a lot of injuries on defense. They're going to be down 2 of their top cornerbacks today. That could definitely help out that passing attack. Deontay Foreman looking strong, I'm just trying to think in my mind which team has the most potential for a shootout. And the Miami Dolphins offense is just humming. I'll take that potential upside of Justin Fields in this game. I know the thing I like about Fields. So Miami, the coordinator for them is Boyer, who has been was a part of the previous coaching staff, and they are Patriots guys. And the Patriots, the one thing they do is they play a lot of man. And when I see man coverage, I like mobile quarterbacks because that ends up seeing the defense ends up turning their back more to the quarterback, which allows them to scramble more and rush more. So I'm going to take the upside of Justin Fields in this game over whatever that Panthers-Cincinnati game will be without Jamar Chase. I'm okay with it. But I think either one's going to be good. Actually, I'm not fading Burrow necessarily, but I think I'm going to take the upside of Justin Fields in this one. All right, let's jump down to this next one here. Isaac Meldez, 12-team full PPR. Pick one of them for my flex. Evan Ingram, Mac Hollins, or questionable Darren Waller. Darren Waller looks to be out today. He plans to start Isaiah likely at tight end. We love that. So really it comes down to Evan Ingram, Jacksonville. Jacksonville has who does Jacksonville have today? Can't remember off the top of my head now. I have all this stuff ready at the hand, but I don't have it up this second. They are facing the Raiders today, which is a nice matchup. And then you have Mac Hollins against those Jacksonville Jaguars. So who do you got?
God, I'm not a Ingram fan, but he's been doing kind of what you need him to do. I liked what Isaac put at the end, that he's probably going to start Likely in the tight end spot over Waller. The only concern with that is that you kind of have to decide that now because a Likely is a Monday night guy, so you can't have Waller in that position. You have to put Likely in him now or in there now. I don't know. Mac Hollins is third on the depth chart, right? He's behind Renfro and he's behind Devontae Adams, and probably even fourth if you count Josh Jacobs as that guy. But to me, it would be a challenge to start two tight ends, one of them in your flex, unless you had an absolute stud as your second tight end. Ingram's not necessarily that guy, but I think he's slightly better than a wide receiver that's not guaranteed to get love. Mac Hollins has been hot and cold, but I guess I would start Evan Ingram this week. The matchup is a little bit better, and I don't think Mac Hollins can really be trusted for volume.
I struggle with this because, you know what, Matt Collins has been fine for fantasy football, to be honest with you. He got double digits last week, had like 9-something and a half PPR last week too, but this is full PPR. I'm not a big fan of starting two tight ends either necessarily, but Evan Ingram's like not utilized like a tight end. I would say give me Evan Ingram slightly ahead of Matt Collins. I'm struggling because I have a wide receiver 3 conundrum as well. And I know that the Raiders versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Jaguars are a slot funnel defense. So they're much better against perimeter receivers than slot receivers. So I would think Devontae's Devontae, then Hunter Renfro would be my next one I'd probably pick in that group. And then it would probably be Matt Collins. So I'm going to have to go Evan Ingram in this one. Wow, Brian, with the Bills signing Hines, Singletary, or a questionable James Conner in the flex. So Conner or Devin Singletary in the flex. What do you got here for Matt?
Well, we don't know what they're going to do, right? What the Bills are going to do. They've seemed to hate and love Singletary all the time. I don't know if Hines is deep enough into the playbook right now to trust him to start. I'm not starting Conner until I know that he's 100%. And right as I read last night, he was still questionable, which would lead Benjamin to be the guy instead of him. I think I still go with Singletary right now, and I don't love him. In fact, I don't even really like him. But that would probably be, I think that's the safer move right now. But again, that's why we've been hit with 3 knockout questions right out the gate, and I think that's why we're here in the morning to talk through this stuff. But for me, I think it's Singletary.
I love how. So I got to tell you, by the way, hello, Derek. Good to see you, sir.
Hey guys.
But I love how like he comes in. It feels like me and Matt made a baby. Like we just babied you in, just come right through our birth canal and pops right up on the screen. Derek's on this show, by the way. Derek, I apologize. You're not in our current writer's DM for Twitter, and I just add you on. You're officially on there, so now every time when I send it there, you're good to go. Good to see you this morning. I'm gonna have to jump right in though. We got Devin Singletary versus James Conner. Who do you got this week?
All right, yeah, no, thanks for having me. If I'm your love child, I need money for college. So please send that money.
You got it.
Facebook, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, jumping right in. I was listening to you guys earlier. Good stuff so far. So in this case, I'm taking Singletary. Hines is going to take a little bit of work, but he's not ready to be unleashed yet. Singletary is. I really had some high hopes for James Conner. In fact, he was in the waiver wire article that I did earlier this week before the trade deadline, and I was really disappointed for his sake that Hines. But I see why Buffalo did it. But this week I'm taking Singletary.
I'm actually going to go against the grain here and go James Conner. I think the other thing with the Conner situation is that he had like this weird rib injury. It just seems like he gets the weirdest injuries and he's out for weeks. And I listened to Dr. David Chow a lot, and he said that he should be fine and he should be playing, and then he never plays. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? But I think the one thing I will say is the Cardinals offense is starting to look a little bit more alive with DeAndre Hopkins back. And I think that James Conner, I'll just go with him. I think he has a slightly better matchup against Seattle's run D versus what's this? Can't read it. What do you got?
Schefter is reporting he's expected to be active against the Seahawks.
There you go. All right. Yeah, well, I knew he was going to be in. So I'm in for Connor this week. Let's jump out to the next one. Sky Empire. Sky Gawasco's burner account. I mean, at this point, you know what I mean? We all have burners at this point. Sky Empire.
I wouldn't say all of us do.
I know. I'm waiting for my burner account to come in and say nice things about me real quick. Come on, let's get in here. Hurry up. I need some peps. I need a pep talk before 8 a.m. Anyway, so we have Joe Burrow versus Tua in this one. It seems like we have some Joe Burrow question marks. Underwhelming performance last week against Cleveland. But Tua is just red hot. Derek, let's go down to you first, man. Who do you got, Tua or Joe Burrow?
Yeah, you guys were kind of talking around this a little bit with Fields too. So I love Joe Burrows, but he was a different quarterback last week without his main target. And Tua is just he's blown my expectations out of the water this year. He's that offense that they've installed with him and those weapons that he has is really just plays to his game in this match. I'm taking Tua.
Matt?
I have to do the same thing. Derek's right that Joe Burrow did not look like Joe Burrow that we love with no Jamar Chase. Now, funny thing about that is when Chase was cool to start the year, Burrow was okay. But if you hearken back and look back at those stats, it all comes down to if Chase is involved, Burrow is nuts. If Chase is not involved or if he's just not there, then Burrow seems to struggle. And I don't know if that's because he's hyper-focused on Chase, because Higgins can play ball and Hurst can play ball, and Mixon, we know, can catch the football. And Derek and I actually need Mixon to catch a lot more passes last week than he did. But I digress. I think that I go with Tua for the exact same reason. He's blown my expectations out. If he stays upright with those two receivers that are currently in the top 5 overall, you can't go away from Tua at this point. And by the way, he's still available in some leagues, which is crazy. I guess I need to research and find out what quarterbacks those teams own, if it's maybe Allen or Mahomes. But goodness gracious, what is he doing on the waiver wire in some of these leagues?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of dead leagues too out there. Like ESPN especially has a lot of those where Tua's just out there and just no one's really paying attention. But yeah, I think the other thing with I'm interested to see, because we just saw Dak Prescott light up the Bears defense. And I think my personal thought, I might be overthinking this. I do think that the Bears have gutted their defensive line. They got rid of all their good pass rushers. And I think that it's going to open things up more for the Bears opponents more, because I think the Bears were holding down offenses, but they faced Trey Lance, a struggling Aaron Rodgers, Davis Mills, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, probably their best one, Carson Wentz. Bailey Zappi is out there slinging it. So it's not like they faced off against the murderous row of quarterbacks this season. So I'm actually going to go Tua, stay with the hot hand, and he has his weapons, and they're ready to roll. All right, let's jump down to the next one here. If I can get to the screen. There you go. Brian, one last one from Brian. Can I pick up Isaiah Likely, or should I keep Gerald Everett in my lineup? I will go first and say I'm putting in Isaiah Likely. It looks like Mark Andrews is doubtful this week, and he will not play, so I want Isaiah Likely in my lineup. But Gerald Everett also on the flip side, no Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams, and no Donald Parham. So he's also a great start this week, but I'm going to lean Likely over Everett. Matt, what are your thoughts?
I'm the same way. And it looks like DeAndre Carter, who was supposed to be the next best thing, is also questionable for the Chargers. So I don't think Everett is a bad idea. But right now, I think in the offense in Baltimore, Likely steps right in to turn into Andrews 2.0. So I like Likely. I prefer Likely. Preferring Likely. I likely prefer Likely.
I likely need to go down to Derek to get his answer.
All right. Well, if you put these two side by side, I'm taking Likely every time. However, they don't match up against each other. They match up against their respective defenses. And the Falcons defense is very, very forgiving to tight ends, ranked 29th versus tight ends, Whereas the Saints are the opposite. They are one of the top defenses against tight ends. We just talked about the missing wide receivers on both sides. Both of these guys are going to get some love. I do think they'll both have a pretty good game, but I'm going to be the dissenting opinion here, and I'm going to say stay with Gerald Everett against the Falcons.
I like it. I like it a lot. Go with the matchup sometimes. The best way to do it. Sky Empire back on it again. Should I start Tom Kennedy, by the way? And that's because of all the injuries to the Lions. If you not know, we haven't gotten to the injury report just yet, but Detroit's pass catchers are decimated. Of course, we know TJ Hawkinson's out the door, but also no Josh Reynolds, DJ Chark, all out. Today it's going to be a combination of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Khalil Raymond, and Tom Kennedy, or Kadarius Toney as my second flex in full PPR. Derek, let's kick it down to you first. Deep. This is a deep one. A lot of question marks here. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, this is very deep. He's got, talking about Kennedy, he's got 9 targets on the year, facing a Green Bay defense that's not horrible against wide receivers. We're not really sure what we're going to get out of Toney, but if he's out there, I think the Chiefs are going to try to get him involved a little bit, just get him warmed up to that high-powered offense, looking down the road to where he could be a real asset. I am going to pass on Kennedy and go with Toney in this question.
Matt?
This is one of those that I take absolutely no, you know me, right? No accountability. So
no responsibility for the answers to this question at all.
So I take Toney because I trust that if Andy Reid traded for this guy and Andy Reid said we have some packages for him, I'm not shocked for a minute if Kadarius Toney scores a touchdown today. I don't know how he'll do it. I don't know why. I don't know if they'll be up 45-3 when he does it, but he's special if he can stay healthy. He's like a super duper light Tyreek Hill, right? If you look at the build and the cutting and the slants that he can run, all of that stuff. Now he's a head case too. He's probably 3/4 crazy, but I would start Toney, and I will go on record as saying, apologies to the listeners and the watchers, I have no idea who Tom Kennedy is. So give me Kadarius Toney.
Lions, he's a 5'10" slot guy for the Lions. I would suspect that he plays inside and Amon-Ra moves around a little bit more there. So I do think that this one is like Toney. He might play 5 snaps in this game. Like, so we don't have a clue. Yeah.
If you're asking me as the expert, which I am far from, I probably pick up Khalif Raymond and start him over either one of those 2 guys.
I would assume Khalif Raymond is not available if he's picking up Tom Kennedy. So yes. I think we have to we're going to give Sky a shout out, benefit of the doubt that this is like he got hit by the bye week and he had to scoop up like the last guys that might get some playing time. I would even assume guys like DeAndre Carter are unavailable in this type of league because of that. So I think I would just take the theoretical upside of Toney in this game. But the problem is with the Chiefs, like Mecole Hardman is coming off like a crazy, 3-touchdown game just before the bye. And that would be the guy you would think Toney might replace because Juju's playing decent. You got MVS, that vertical deep threat. Just seems like a lot of mouths to feed behind. By the way, they have an all-pro tight end just to who demands targets. So I'm going to go Toney. Whatever, just have fun with it. You'll laugh when he goes 0 for 0 and plays 3 snaps. You'll have a nice laugh on Sunday Night Football, and you'll never come back to the show. Let's go around to Ryan H. A happy daylight savings, by the way. It's my clock in the kitchen says 8:30. When I went to go walk over here at like 7:25, I looked at the clock and had like a 3-second panic attack. Like, what the fuck am I doing? Did I just lose an hour of my life? But no, there's a thing called daylight savings time, and we're on time at 7:30 a.m. Anyway, pick 2, standard league: Kirk, Metcalf, Palmer, and Curtis Samuel. Derek, let's go down to you.
All right, so standard league, this really changes things. Who's going to score a touchdown here? That's what I'm looking at. In all these cases, this is tough. You need to pick 2. I'm going to start with Metcalf. He was injured. He's hobbling around, but he played through it, and he was productive. He's a good red zone target for Geno Smith. Cardinals are pretty easy on those wide receivers like Metcalf. So I'm definitely starting with Metcalf. The other one really a toss up to me. I'd love to pick Samuel, but we haven't really seen, the same Samuel as it started. Palmer is the guy, for the Chargers. He's going to get his targets, but he's also going to get that attention. And then, Kurt with that Jaguars offense against the Raiders, I'll take Kirk, but it's a toss up for those other three, Metcalf and Kirk for me.
Matt?
Those are my two names too. But for me, it's not a toss up with Kirk and Palmer. I think Kirk's way more likely to get in the end zone, where Palmer's more of the dink and dunk guy. Now, he was dink and dunk when there was Big Mike on the other side, but I think that he's going to end up with the number one cornerback on him. Bobby's the expert on slot versus wide. I don't know offhand who that cornerback is going to be, but give me Metcalf because he's just a freak of nature, and he should have been out for a couple of weeks, but instead he just turned it on last week. Agree with Samuel. We haven't seen what we need to see from him. A couple of weeks ago, or maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, we recommended Samuel because of his rushing ability in a standard league. We haven't really seen that lately. So I like Kirk, and I like, by the way, Trevor Lawrence second half of the season to be a top 10 quarterback. So I like Kirk there.
So when I'm looking at this, number one, Kirk is one of my starts of the week. I love Kirk against the Raiders this week, a slot funnel defense. Here's some interesting stats. Like if you look at Metcalf versus the Arizona Cardinals the last 5 weeks, he went 3 for 46 and 1, 2 for 23 back in 2020. And then last year he had 2 underwhelming performing games as well. And then in 2022, just 2 weeks ago, he went 2 for 34. For some reason, he has like this fog against Arizona. Now, Arizona is an out wide funnel defense, so you would think Metcalf should get it done. But if you cannot start Josh Palmer with no Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen against the Atlanta Falcons, why is he even on your team? Like, just drop him, because this is the week. Like, Atlanta Falcons are like AJ Terrell out. By the way, their top cornerback is out. Give me Palmer. Give me Kirk. If you cannot start Palmer this week, by the way, we all should be high on Palmer because of the fact that they're playing the freaking Falcons, by the way, who make everybody look awesome. So I just have to, out of principle, like, just put Palmer in. Metcalf, for some reason, has not gotten it done against the Cardinals. Guarantee you this week he will, and I'll be wrong. But, like, if you got Josh Palmer on your team, when are you going to play him? Like, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen against Atlanta. Like, 2 + 2 = 4 sometimes. That's how I feel about it. Get him in your lineups. I'll be wrong, but I'm okay. Now, Brian, I'm assuming when you say you have Khalil Herbert as well, is that based on the Devin Singletary, James Conner comment from before? Now, Derek, would that change your thoughts here? Would you start Khalil Herbert over Singletary and James Conner this week?
It would if Montgomery was out, of course, but
Yeah.
No, I'm still going Singletary.
Matt?
I'm the same way. However, I'm changing my pick to James Conner with him being ready to go.
Let's go.
Now,
I love it.
Again, I said at the beginning of the year, in fact, it may be in print. I may have written it. James Conner's not going to score 18 touchdowns again. So I'm correct.
Oh, that's a fact.
Yeah, that's too far gone at this point. But if you saw what Eno Benjamin did to the Seahawks, if James Conner can get into that same groove, he's going to absolutely thrash. Derek and I actually own Eno, and Eno's season is over. Shed a tear, right? Pour out a little bit for our homie Eno. So he's probably droppable now, but the only reason we picked him up, and Derek was the one who identified it, is because they had they had twice against Seattle in a 4-week span. And so we said if this rib injury for Conner goes 4 weeks, Eno Benjamin is a must start twice. Well, with Conner back, Eno's out, but I think Conner's a better start than Hines or Singletary at this point.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to probably stick with James Conner in this one. Miami really hasn't been terrible against the run like they have in years past, so let's stick with James Conner there. All right. Oris Kastner. How you doing? Start Palmer or DeAndre Swift. Now, of course, if you haven't heard, Swift is questionable today. Will play, but he's expected to have limited snaps. I had to program my brain. I had Swift as a top 6 player this year. I was all about him. But now you're dealing with a 1-6 football team, or 1-7, whatever the Lions are right now. They're basically not going to make a run for the playoffs on top of all this. And I don't really expect them to unleash Swift. Why would they? They have no chance to make the playoffs. So it sounds like they're going to ease him back in. And then, of course, on the flip side of this, you have Josh Palmer, who I just talked about, has like the biggest opportunity of the season in an elite matchup. So, Derek, let's kick it down to you. Which one of these guys are you playing this week?
Yeah, I totally agree. I really wish Swift was healthy, but it's one thing when the coaching staff or the head coach comes out and says, well, this guy might be a little banged up, but when you have Swift coming out saying he's not going to be healthy, or he hasn't been playing healthy, that you take caution there. Assuming in this case, again, it's just an assumption that this is a PPR league, so there's the added benefit to Palmer, and we talked about Palmer. So, as much as I would love to see Swift really just come out, I agree with you, Bobby. There's just no reason to. Why do that? So I'm going Palmer.
Mateo?
Well, I hate to say this. So Derek just said, I think Bobby's right. So
I get one once in a while. I'm right. Once in a while,
I'm going to say I think Bobby sold me on Palmer. I think Bobby's right as well. Swift is the much better fantasy football player, but terrible team. He's dinged. Jamal Williams is a perfect tandem running back that can take and do the same things that Swift can do on just slightly lesser fantasy value. So they don't have to play Swift. They can play Williams. And by the way, my Packers have been pretty disappointing on defense. So Jamal Williams can, and by the way, isn't it a revenge game? Yes, it is for Jamal Williams. So give me Palmer over Swift, especially with Swift saying I'm a little bit dinged.
Yeah, I'm starting to think you guys might be my burner accounts. With all this love right now, I appreciate you guys heard me. That's why I love you guys, because I said I need a little bit of a pep boost, and you guys came through for me. I love you both. This is what I'm talking about. Now, I got to admit one thing. This is like a frustrating thing. The number one matchup metric in our adjusted line yards on Razzball.com is Detroit versus Green Bay. So the Detroit offensive line versus that Green Bay defensive line, who, by the way, is missing one of their stud linebackers today too. So it's like, man, Swift, this is like a golden matchup. But it's just like I said before, like Palmer in this game, like what's the point of having a guy like Palmer on your roster if you cannot play him against Atlanta, who's missing all their best cornerback, who allows one of the top 3 fantasy points out wide this season? Yeah, I think I'm just going to trust Palmer. At this point, you can't really hate on yourself for not starting a player who literally prior to the game, they said, oh, he might get limited snaps. We're not really sure if he's healthy, who had 5 carries last week, and then the coach comes out and says we should have gave him less carries. So, like, I don't know how you could trust Swift this week, so I'm going to go Palmer as well. Ryan, thank you, guys. Good luck, y'all. We appreciate you, Brian, for jumping on the show. As always, Ryan H., another one here. Standard League, Deion Jackson, Jamal Williams, who we just talked about, Stevenson, and Brian Robinson. Of course, as a reminder, Deion Jackson will be getting the start today. Nyheim Hines, of course, in Buffalo. JT is out. You got Zach Moss and Philip Lindsay, but it looks like Deion Jackson will get the start today. Jamal Williams, of course, in that elite matchup against the Packers. No DeAndre Swift. Limited DeAndre Swift. You got Stevenson with no Damian Harris, who I think is probably an auto start at this point. And, of course, Brian Robinson. There's no J.D. McKissick today. So all these guys have some positive arrows pointing up. Derek, let's kick down to you first. What's your thoughts about pick 2 of these running backs in a standard league?
Yeah, I picked up Deion Jackson in my home league this week. When we heard the news that he was going to be the guy, and I'm starting him in that league. But I temper those expectations. Patriots are really strong against running backs. I mean, he is going to get volume, which is going to be helpful for that standard league. But you've got 2 better options there, in my opinion, and with Williams, which we just talked about, and then Stevenson. Stevenson is going to run right through the Colts defense, in my opinion. So I'm going Stevenson and Williams, and I'm comfortable with that decision here.
Question: who are you starting Deion Jackson over in your league?
Don't ask that question about that home league.
Yeah, you really want to know? Yeah.
I do. I was just curious because he is like that guy who's probably like that borderline RB2 that we're going to talk a lot about today. So I'm just
Tom Kennedy and Len Dawson. Those are the 2 players.
So I have 4 running backs in that league. I have DeAndre Swift. I have Eno Benjamin, Jeff Wilson Jr., which I picked up this week, and Deion Jackson, which I picked up this week. So you tell me which of those two you think I'm starting.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're good there. All right.
Yes.
Matt, what's your thoughts on this one?
I'm the same way. I go Jamal and Ramondre.
Yeah, same. I think this one's kind of a slam dunk. I know Jackson is going to be a nice play this week, but I'm not going to sit Stevenson ever when there's no Damian Harris. And then Jamal Williams has the best matchup on the week against the Packers. So I'll probably go those two guys as well. Let's go to Stefan Grise. Hey, all. Battling some injuries and buys, aren't we all, my friend? Can you share some thoughts on my flex spot? So we're here for that. That's what we do. We share thoughts on flex spots, our favorite. Full point PPR, Lazard, Dobbs, Rondale Moore, and Zay Jones. Which what you got, Matt? Tell me.
I think Derek and I had kind of this discussion last night. Right now we have Dobbs penciled in, but we're considering starting likely over Dobbs, which tells me that Dobbs may not be the best choice. Now I'm looking something up real quick.
Lazard should be in today.
Lazard
will be in today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like he's
now he's listed. LaFleur called him a game time decision. It's a shoulder. So if you remember back, what is it now? 2 weeks it was last week. No, 2 weeks when Andrews falls on the shoulder, right? That was a clean shoulder. That was a completely healthy Mark Andrews shoulder, and he didn't come back, and he's going to probably miss this week. So shoulder scares me a little bit for receivers because they don't always just run out of bounds, right? Sometimes they're like Walter Payton and they go and they take an extra hit. I love Rondale Moore. We talked about him a little bit at the beginning of the show. Bobby and I did. It's not Robbie Anderson's season, but it certainly is Nuke Hopkins season. So Rondale Moore, I think, gets dropped down a little bit. Zay Jones, I can pass on him with the other three names. I think today I go Dobbs, Lazard, Moore, and I probably don't even consider Zay Jones. I go in that order.
All right, so you're picking Dobbs. What about you, Derek?
I'm not too far behind. I will put Dobbs first on this over Lazard, and the reason being, even though the Lions are porous on defense wide receivers, they actually are a little better against the slot, and that's where Lazard lives. So I give Dobbs the edge there, and I'm not starting two Packers wide receivers. Sorry, Matt. I'm just not doing it. I would take Rondale Moore and Dobbs.
I think it's only start one. We're talking about just a flex here. This is only one.
Okay. Sorry, I thought that was two. So yeah, Dobbs then Moore. Dobbs and then Moore are my top two there. Starting Dobbs.
Yeah, if Lazard's in, I'm playing him. He just scores like a touchdown every time he's in the game. It seems like every time he plays.
But it's also 3 for 35 in a touchdown.
I understand. Yeah, well, I understand that, but Dobbs could give you 0 for 0. He's done that too. We're going to talk about some downsides. But I think, I agree with the shoulder thing. It is what it is. But Lazard is the go-to guy. He's the one that Rodgers trusts. Rodgers owns the Lions. This is like one of those things where it's a narrative street for me. Rodgers needs to win this game. They destroy the Lions typically, and Lazard's his go-to guy. I just would have to go with it and hope that he doesn't re-aggravate that injury. So I'm going to go Lazard myself for this one. All right, Mike Jordan, welcome back, Mike. Always a pleasure, sir. Glad to see you back on the show. What are your guys' thoughts on Chase Claypool? We did break this down just a little bit before. You think he'll have an impact over the season? Is he worth the stash? Derek, you weren't here early on, so why don't you talk a little bit about Chase Claypool and your thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, I really like this trade for the Bears. I think that he matches up really well in that offense, gives them, it feels another tool to work with as he's been, really on an upward trajectory. Temper your expectations a little bit till he gets up to speed there and again gets into that offense, but definitely worth a stash, and probably either a third wide receiver or a flex starter for me in a couple of weeks for sure.
Matt, any additional thoughts about Chase Claypool?
No, but we've seen Mike Jordan in here for a few weeks now. I would like to apply to you, Bobby, that you request Mike Jordan to change his handle to Michael Jordan.
Nice. because he's a Hall of Famer in our book. You know what I mean? We love you, Mike. Well, just so if you missed it earlier, we talked a little bit about this. I do like the Chase Claypool trade for the Bears. Forget about compensation, whether they should have traded a second round pick. I don't really care about that. It probably was a little bit of an overpay. But I do think it's nice to. I actually think it from a flip side, because this is a team that's selling away defensive assets like Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn and all these guys, and they traded Khalil Mack earlier this season. I think from my perspective, though, the fact that they're investing in the offense shows that they're starting to buy into Justin Fields and that offense overall. And I think that when you look at the vertical style, both Claypool and Darnell Mooney both can beat teams down deep. And I do like the fact that they can run the ball a lot with Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery and Justin Fields and take shots deep. That's the thing that was missing from Chase Claypool. Like, Claypool's entire existence in the NFL has been dealing with Ben Roethlisberger, Mitch Trubisky, and like a little splash of a rookie quarterback. We haven't seen him yet with a player that is kind of known for his deep ball. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Justin Fields, by the way, I'm not saying as of today is a good deep ball thrower, but he has the arm talent to develop into that. He dominated Ohio State with that. I think that if that's the next phase, right, if he can start developing that deep passing game, which he can do, I think that Chase Claypool is worth a stash, but it depends on over who. I just think the Bears' passing game isn't something I'm overly excited with as a whole this season. I like the combination of the running attack with Justin Fields. But I do think that Chase Claypool offers this other element, a big physical receiver. They needed the talent, right? And it's nice to see they invest in that offense. So 2 thumbs up to the Bears, Justin Fields, and I do think he is worth a stash. Let's jump down to Ricardo Montez. Ricardo, how you doing, sir? Thank you for joining. We got a Jamal Williams over Fournette in full PPR. Okay. All right. Matt, what are your thoughts here?
I don't want to touch it. I'd rather start
touch it.
I'd rather start one of them in my flex if I could do that. But for me, we don't know that Swift is going to play 5 snaps or 35 snaps. We don't know if Rachaad White's season is starting to creep in Tampa Bay. But when Brady needs to shut people up, he can put up 45 points. Now, he hasn't been great at doing that. Fournette has been really hot and cold all year. Going into the season, this is a no-brainer, right? It's Fournette all day. It's not Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is a handcuff at best. I'm still leaning towards Fournette in this based on the fact that they can't really run the ball, so he's going to get all the dump-offs. And if and when they do run, it's going to be Fournette around the goal line. I think Brady throws 50 times today in an attempt to shut people up, right, and to quiet the divorce and prenup and all that discussion and just play football. And his best football is when he drops back and throws the ball 50 times. So there'll be 3 and 4 yard passes, but if they set it up right, I like Fournette. I think Green Bay's defense comes back and plays better today than they have. So as much as I like Jamal in the other question, I like Fournette in this question.
Okay, Derek?
Well, we already talked about Williams and why this is such a great matchup for him. And I think collectively, we think that Swift is not going to play much. It's going to be a Williams, certainly a majority, and if not a strong majority of the carries and the workload or the snaps in the backfield are going to go his way. And you look at Fournette, he was really playing well early on, and he was focused. Last 2 games against Carolina and Baltimore, both of which are not the best defenses. He has a total of 17 carries for about 45 yards and 5 receptions total. Again, this is a 2-game total for about 41 yards.
Solid number.
So, yes, a lot of numbers which tell me that Williams is the clear choice here for me.
Yeah, if just from a matchup standpoint, it's clearly Jamal Williams. The other problem I have with Williams, though, is like if you just look at his stats, right? 10 for 53 on the ground, 2 touchdowns. And then the week prior, he has 15 for 79, no touchdowns. And then it's just like 15 for 56, no touchdowns. He scores. He's got 4 games with 2 touchdowns and 3 games with no touchdowns. And that's like the flip of his fantasy day. It's like he's a touchdown dependent guy. He's got two really dominant games when Swift was not playing. And you know what? I'm just gonna stick with this. I'm gonna stick with the spreadsheets. I'm gonna go with Jamal Williams. It hurts though because I have so much Leonard Fournette, but I'm starting Fournette this week in my flex across the board. But I will jump on board with Jamal. All right, Isaac Melendez, what's going on, man? How you doing? 12 team, full PPR in my RB2 slot. Would you start Eno Benjamin or Dontrell Hilliard? Okay, let's jump down to you, Derek. First, what are your thoughts on Eno versus Dontrell?
Wow. Well, I'd ask if Deion Jackson is available. See if you can go grab him or someone like him, who's going to get some volume. We talked about James Conner being active, and what that means to Benjamin. I actually like Hilliard a little bit when I was getting ready for the show here. And, of course, we know that Derrick Henry is going to get the workload there, but Hilliard is going to catch some passes. And, the Titans are going to try to slow down the game, keep that ball out of Mahomes' hands, keep the Chiefs' offense off the field. So I could see, a lot of running with Derrick Henry. But, if they're in a catch-up mode, Hilliard is going to get some playing time. He's going to get some passes out of the backfield. If this is your two choices, I am playing Hilliard.
Matt?
I'm the same way. Kansas City gives up a lot of yards. They give up a lot of points. They don't lose a lot of games. And with the return of Connor, that we could see Eno go to the bench and not come in except for a periodic third down here or there. And I think the better player overall is probably Hilliard. If they were, put in vacuums and looked at just completely agnostic to everything else, I think Hilliard's the better player. My only concern is that Henry was so good last week, and he's so much better than James Conner. Is it possible that Hilliard just does not see the field? But then leaning back to what Derek said, he almost has to see the field in a game against Kansas City. So I lean towards Hilliard as well.
I don't think there's a good answer here for us because these are both backups who we don't really entirely know what their workload's going to be. So really at this point, I'm just going to go with the matchup. And I know that the Tennessee Titans running against rush attack is much better than the Arizona rushing attack in their matchup. So I'm just going to lean with Hilliard. And the other aspect of this whole thing, which we all know, is if Kansas City gets ahead, Derrick Henry isn't the passing game back. It's Hilliard. So I think maybe there is some small upside that maybe the game flow. But the Titans are the team that'll be down 17 points and they'll keep running Derrick Henry because they know he's explosive, like a passing game. He basically could be a passing attack with his 50-yard run. So, but I am going to go Hilliard slightly ahead because I'll just bet on the better matchup this week in this scenario. Michael Jordan. Coming back again with another one here, folks. Mike, by the way, he always looks forward to the Razzball Sundays. Thanks, guys. We appreciate the support, man. Honestly, we love it. We're here multiple hours every Sunday, breaking down start, sits, injuries, you name it. We appreciate you being on. And that's why we're going to show you some love here. Elijah Mitchell coming off IR soon. Is he a high-value handcuff? Or are you looking to hold him or drop him? My thoughts first on this is, number one, I'm going to the CMC owner. Whoever has CMC in my league, and I'm saying, hey, man, I got Elijah Mitchell. Before I drop him, I'm going to try to trade him to the CMC owner. Because if I'm the CMC owner with Jeff Wilson now gone, I kind of want Elijah Mitchell. I want Elijah Mitchell on my bench just in case. Because we know Elijah Mitchell could be a solid borderline RB1 when he gets the rock and is the starter. And CMC, listen, I know he's been great this year. I know he's been healthy. But the guy's literally missed multiple games the last 2 seasons. So I wouldn't mind having Elijah Mitchell on the edge. So, Mike, why don't you go check out the owner of CMC right now? Let us know who's on his bench or what his entire team. Maybe we could find a nice trade partner there. But what are your thoughts, Matt, on this situation with Elijah Mitchell?
Exactly what you said. I'm either holding him or I'm trying to trade him to the CMC owner for the exact reasons that you said. That CMC is not a guy you cannot own the handcuff. I think that was like a quadruple negative. If you own CMC, you must have his handcuff. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Derek?
Yeah, and I'll take that thought even a step further. Go back to last year's league, if this was a multi-year league, and see who the Mitchell owner was last year, because they probably loved this guy. Maybe it was you, maybe it was someone else, but they probably loved this guy because he really helped them last year. And you know how you get you get fixated on a player who helps you, win a title or go a long way and kind of cements your team. You kind of have that soft spot for them. See if that person is available as well. But barring a trade, I'm holding him. We've seen so many occasions where that backup running back becomes gold in a week, and we certainly know the history on CMC. So if you can't trade him for something, I'm holding him.
Okay, Mike, I feel like I got to admit, our team's been very good with unique perspectives. We don't just say drop, add. We go into the weeds. We're telling you to go into your league archives, folks, and find out who had Elijah Mitchell last year. I absolutely love that. Right now we have a little bit of a break in the questions. Let's start jumping into the injuries, and I'm going to get you guys' thoughts on these as well. We just had trade deadline there. All right. So just kind of jumping these really quick. First of all, Monday Night Football, we have Mark Andrews, Gus Edwards, and Rashad Bateman out. Matt, kicking over to you first. You have a lot of injuries to this Baltimore Ravens offensive side. Is there a player you want to highlight? I know we talked about Isaiah Likely a lot, Devin Duvernay, Demarcus Robinson. Maybe that's a name we haven't talked about a lot today is Demarcus Robinson. If we're talking about something like Tom Kennedy, for example, and that starts it. Maybe Demarcus Robinson was the right answer there. Any thoughts about the Ravens offense this Monday Night Football against the Saints with all their injuries?
To me, it's Likely and it's nobody else. I'm not going to start Demarcus Robinson over somebody that I probably already rostered. So I'll start Likely all day, and I'll take the hit if he doesn't perform. But that's the absolute name I'm starting for Baltimore.
Derek?
Yeah, I wrote about a few words about Demarcus Robinson the other day in the Target Trends article that I did. He had a season high 8 targets last year, or last week after Bateman's injury. Saints give up 28 points per game to wideouts. 100% of Robinson's fantasy points have come from the wideout position. If I'm looking for that to fill that last wide receiver spot or a flex spot, there's a lot worse options than Demarcus Robinson. But that being said, he is a little dinged up. He's not going to be the focal point. I would take that with caution, but I would at least consider him for your starting lineup.
Yeah, I agree with Demarcus Robinson. Like the Tommy Kennedy situation that we just talked about as a prime example, like Tom Kennedy and Kadarius Toney, we know Demarcus Robinson is going to be out there, and he has a good matchup. Maybe a Robinson over those two guys is a scenario I would consider as well. Let's jump down. So we have a couple more questions rolling in. My burner account finally shows up. Thank you, James, for finally being here. Good morning, fellas. Love the show. We love you too, James. Appreciate you. At least now the burner's now saying nice things about the show and the whole team instead of just me. So I just want to let you know now I've taken your criticism and your constructive feedback, and I've incorporated the entire team in my burner account. Grits. What is this? Gits. Okay. Pick 2, Likely, Mooney, or Hawkinson. So it looks like we have Isaiah Likely, Darnell Mooney, and TJ Hawkinson this week. Derek, let's go down to you first on this one.
Long term, I like Hawkinson, but I don't really love him today. I really see that the Commanders' defense is really strong against the tight end. He's still learning the offense. Oh, yeah. Kirk Cousins isn't infamous for targeting tight ends at a high volume. So I'm going to take a slow pause on Hawkinson for this week. We talked about Likely, they need weapons. He's going to be out there. He's going to get it. And we also talked a little bit about Mooney. We talked about Claypool, now that there's another wide receiver weapon out there for the Bears, maybe that gives Mooney a little more space to work in. In this case, I'm taking Likely.
Matt?
The only reason I'm going to fade Mooney is because, there's 2 reasons. 3. One, it's the Bears.
1, he's on the Bears.
Yeah, that's 1. 2, we've already discussed Fields is not quite the passing quarterback that we need yet. And 3, the defensive back, number 1, that would be covering Mooney is kind of a stud for Miami. So I Likely. And we've already talked about him ad nauseum. And based on the report out of Minnesota today that Hawkinson is going to play, quote unquote, a lot, I'll take him. Hawkinson and Likely. And again, I will be here next week. If Likely goes 1 for 11, I'll be here to apologize to everybody, but he's not going to do that on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Go back to my preseason article about tight ends. The first article I wrote, the third article I wrote for this company. And I said the deepest sleeper I could find was Isaiah Likely.
Nice. Well, let's see. I'm trying to look at Xavier Howard's stats from this year and where he's actually played. That was really weird how they had that set up. Anyway, Xavier Howard splits. He does split left and right sides, 57 to 33%, according to PFF. So he does move around the formation. I just think that this year the Dolphins really haven't been that good against receivers. So I'm actually going to be okay with Mooney. Give me Mooney Likely. I'll take a wait-and-see approach on Hawkinson. I'm willing to take the L on that one. All right, Isaiah Meldez, another one here. 12-team PPR pick 2. DJ Moore, Metcalf, and Chris Godwin. Derek, what's going on to you?
Well, I'll start with Metcalf. I'm taking Metcalf. I love the matchup. We mentioned him before, playing through the injury and being productive. Definitely taking Metcalf here. The other two guys, really have tough matchups today. Both are upside receivers. DJ Moore has kind of resurrected his season out of the ashes lately, which is nice to see. And Godwin is just such a high ceiling that although we just never know what we're going to get. Again, neither one of them have great matchups. And I never thought I'd say this, but neither one also has a quarterback that's playing all that great. I'm not so concerned about that statement with Walker, but with Brady, he just looks slow to me. His reaction's slow. Of course, he doesn't have an offensive line. He just looks out of sort and kind of looking his age to me. But that being said, between the two, I think Godwin has the best chance of providing what we want this week in that matchup. I think Evans has a much better matchup versus the Rams defense than Godwin does out of the slot. But of the two, I'm going to go Godwin. I have Godwin and I'm playing him. He's one of those guys where you just got to play. But I don't love this matchup for him. But again, I'm taking Godwin over Moore.
Matt?
First of all, Derek, I have Brady and Stafford in Razzball. I'm currently 7th overall, and I would say that you're playing your age more than Brady is. I don't like what you said, and I'm not going to hide the fact that I'm upset by it. I need Brady to be really good.
Nice.
He's not. But the divorce is over, right? It's over. It's in the rearview mirror, right? Look behind me. Pearl Jam has a song, Rearview Mirror. It's written everywhere. It's everywhere you can possibly be. Tom Brady turns back into Tom Brady. Now you're right. He has no offensive line. The number 2 receiver on my board this week, behind only Justin Jefferson, is Chris Godwin. So I'm taking Godwin, and I'm taking Godwin at 8 for 115 and 2 touchdowns, which means Jefferson will be better than that. And I'm going to take DK Metcalf because I don't trust PJ Walker. And if we can get DJ Moore just to keep his helmet on, that would be great.
Okay. So, well, first off, the Rams defense is one of the best against slot receivers. So that worries me a little bit. So with Tom Brady, he's had kind of an up and down a little bit against the Rams. So he's 7 for 53 and 1, 9 for 88 and 1. And then in 2021, his stats were, let's just quickly jump over here, 6 for 74. So Godwin's been very consistent against this team, but he hasn't had that monster game against Rams. Now you're dealing with him still coming back from that injury, hasn't really been really efficient, lowest yards per route run, yards per target of his career. But we could say the same thing with DK in his matchup. So I'm actually going to go DJ Moore, stay with the hot hand, Carolina this week against Cincinnati, who's banged up, and DK Metcalf as well. So I'm going to go with those two and hope for the best on that one.
I'll look for the text. I'll look for the text when Godwin goes off.
That's cool, man. Honestly, I'm all good. And if DJ Moore and DK go down in flames, I will take responsibility for that one. All right, James Gannon, need 2 of 3 full PPR. Kenyon Drake, Khalil Herbert, and Deion Jackson. Your boy, Derek. Let's go to Matt first on this one, though. What do you got?
Deion Jackson is for sure for me. I think he's probably going to do PPR stuff like he did last time. I think he had 10 catches the week that Taylor was out. I think he had 10 catches, and maybe it was on like 11 targets, but something silly. From there, Bobby just reported Gus Bus is out. Did you say out, or is he just significantly questionable?
He's doubtful.
Doubtful. Okay, so doubtful equals he's not playing, right? Pretty much. Same with Mark Andrews. David Montgomery is healthy and playing, so I'm going to take Deion Jackson as the first name. Kenyon Drake is the second name.
Derek?
Well, first of all, I feel for you, James, because if you heard my running back situation in my home league that I mentioned before, this really is reminiscent of me. So I can empathize with you. I feel your pain. So going to the question, I am taking Jackson. You knew that was coming. Again, this is a volume play for me. Don't love it, of course, against the Patriots, but of the three, he's going to get significantly more volume than the other two. I am going to go with Herbert though for the second pick. That game against the Dolphins, that could be a shootout. It really could. And I like Herbert coming on the backfield with some catches as full PPR. I think he's going to help you more certainly in the passing game than the running game with Montgomery there. But Kenyon Drake was supposed to be the guy couple weeks and we didn't see that. And whether it's Justice Hill or if it's some other guy that they call up from the practice squad, they just seem to take his carries that he's supposed to get. And it's Monday night, so you got to make that decision here this morning. So many uncertainties there in Baltimore. I'll go with the sure thing with Jackson and Herbert.
I'm going to go Drake and Jackson in this one. Give me the guys that I think will get the bigger workloads. Who knows with that Bears backfield? I mean, they always feel like they get 15 carries apiece, and then Khalil Herbert's been looking really good, but I'm just going to go with the guys I think are going to get the most touches in that one. Get another one here. The team likely is playing only allows 6 points per game to tight end. So he basically is saying that the Saints, this is Derek brought up a little bit earlier, why he faded likely in that one matchup is because New Orleans has a really tough one. So, yeah, no, I hear you, man, but I just think Matt, we'll give you your words in 1 second, but I will say that Isaiah Likely does not. They don't. The Ravens don't play tight ends like tight ends are traditionally played. I mean, they play them like slot receivers essentially. So, but yes, I get it. Tough matchup for tight ends. Matt, your thoughts?
You stole part of my thunder, right? Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are going to be interchangeable based on the offensive structure and what Lamar Jackson does. And two, because I'm in a salty mood after what Derek said about Tom Brady's age, I'm going to tell Gitz, I don't care what his analysis says, he's got a Fernando Tatis emoji. I'm out on Gitz.
Wow. Fernando Tatis. Shots. All right. Bill, how you doing, sir? Jamal Williams for Green. A lot of Jamal Williams talk today. Or Devonta Foreman. By the way, no Chuba Hubbard today, so Foreman should get that workload again against Cincinnati. Derek, your thoughts first on this one.
Yeah, I do like the volume opportunity there for Foreman. Cincinnati has a tough defense against running backs. They're our top 10. It's running backs. We've talked Williams already in that matchup with Green Bay. We don't think Swift is going to get much work, so it's going to be a Williams show. I'm going with the former and go with Williams, and I will fade a little Foreman. I wish I had Foreman in my home league. I'll say that. So I'm not totally out on him, but in this matchup here, I'm going Williams.
Matt?
I think it's Williams too, based on the fact that Cincinnati's D has been playing better than Green Bay. That's the only reason. If it was a couple of normalized, or if they both play in the Falcons, I'd probably start Deontay Foreman, but they're not both playing the Falcons. So I lean a little bit, like Derek said, towards Jamal Williams.
I'm going to go Foreman. Since actually in our matchup metric, he's got a top 10 matchup this week. So Carolina's running game had it going last week. I know against Atlanta, but I think Foreman without no Chuba Hubbard, give me that volume upside. I know the Williams is I don't know. I just don't trust it. I know like Swift is limited. It just seems weird to me. I don't know. I'll try to avoid that situation if I can. I'm gonna go Foreman in that one.
And part
This
of
is a
the
revenge game. Don't forget. Yeah, don't forget this is a women's revenge game.
Yes.
Yeah, but he could have got his revenge last year, and he had like 50 yards rushing in both those games. So I don't know what to say to that. Like he technically should have gotten his revenge last year. Let's just pull that up because I like the revenge game narrative.
By the way, revenge game is not a thing. And fantasy jinxes are a thing, and that's why I'm recommending Jamal Williams all day.
Yeah, 13 for 43 and 7 for 25 last year against Green Bay. So I don't know what maybe he likes Green Bay. Joke's on you, Derek. Maybe he loves Green Bay. Doesn't want to get revenge. He loves them, and he actually underperforms. So joke's on all of us if we start him for that.
Who doesn't love Green Bay?
A lot of people. Anyway, moving on. So
let's move on.
Let's jump back into some of this stuff. So Gets obviously talk a little bit about Aaron Donald dominating that Bucs offensive line. Probably going to be a thing, 1,000%. Don't really love either of those running games. I mean, the Rams backfield. I mean, Cam Akers. We'll talk about that in a second. I have info. All right, let's jump back into some of these really quick here.
Oh, Bobby, before you do that, Derek, look up on your little app and see what Brady's rushing yards prop is. I want the under on whatever it is.
Half. It'd probably be a half.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd probably be like 1.5 or 0.5. Give me
the under. I'll Venmo you $5.
Yeah, so we have Josh Reynolds out today. We also have Allen and Williams out. We've talked a lot about Josh Palmer already. Donald Parham, Gerald Everett will probably get additional looks in their plus matchup this week. Remember, they're playing those Atlanta Falcons very tough. Chubb Hubbard, wrong little typo there, but Chubb Hubbard, we've got Dante Foreman based on our adjusted line yards magic top 10 matchup this week. Love him as a RB2/flex. Of course, no Jamar Chase. We talked a little about the impact last week against Cleveland for those on Monday night playing on the short week. But Will T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, Matt, I'm just going to ask you quickly about this one. What are your thoughts about T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd this week with no Jamar Chase? Any thoughts on those guys? Are you starting them in your lineups?
I'm starting both with Chase out. I'm starting Mixon as well. And I will tell you, Derek and I made a great trade for Mixon earlier this year. It hasn't really panned out because Mixon hasn't been Mixon, which leads me to believe that Burrow's going to be throwing a little bit more. And I think Carolina will hang around enough where they're going to have to throw the ball. So, and by the way, do you want to be the guy that benches 4 for 108 and a touchdown for Tyler Boyd? Or do you want to be the guy that takes the chance on 4 for 27, Tyler Boyd? I think you have to start him with Chase out. I just think you do. And by the way, if I can, I'm going to get back to Gitz because I'm over Gitz and I'm mad at Gitz. Marshawn Lattimore is out. Baltimore plays their tight ends like wide receivers. The best cover cornerback in New Orleans is who? Marshawn Lattimore. Give me more likely. I'm going to start likely twice.
All right. Love it. All right. Now, Derek, I want to get your thoughts, too, on Cam Akers being active today. You have this Rams backfield with Darrell Henderson and Ronnie Rivers, Kieran Williams. Any thoughts about this backfield this week? Are you going to be starting maybe a Darrell Henderson in your flex if you have to?
No. I'm staying away from this backfield any way possible. I'm looking for the Tom Kennedys out there running back. I'm going to anywhere because I don't think Cam Akers. I mean, he's a talent, but we don't know what he's going to bring today, and he's been out for a while. Who knows if he's even in any kind of game shape? It just might be suiting up just to reacclimate himself to the team locker room. So we don't know what we're going to get. Henderson has been just a disappointment. Again, and Ronnie Rivers as well. Where'd he come from? We just don't know what we're getting. I'm just completely staying away from that backfield.
You want to tell Bobby the trade we made, thinking we were slick with Cam Akers?
Not really.
No. All right. Jonathan Taylor, we also talked about a bunch today, is out today, of course, with the Nyheim Hines trade. Deion Jackson's solid RB2 if needed. Darren Waller officially out today, so he'll be out of this game against Jacksonville. If you're looking for that desperate, that Tom Kenny of tight ends is the backup for the Raiders, which I'm blanking on for this moment. Anybody off the top of their heads remember the backup Raiders tight end? I cannot remember his name.
Foster Moreau.
Moreau. There you go. Devontae Parker is out today. It's Tyquan Thornton probably get additional snaps out wide in this matchup. Something flying under the radar just a little bit is the Patriots are down 2 offensive linemen this week, so could be a little bit of a ding against a really, really tough Indianapolis Colts run defense. So something to think about Ramondre Stevenson. Maybe you fade him in DFS, but you're not going to fade him in season-long leagues. Of course, because Damian Harris is out. Mark Ingram is out. We talked a little bit about this for maybe Taysom Hill getting additional carries behind Alvin Kamara. But Alvin Kamara, prior to the Ingram trade last year, was an absolute workhorse. Love Alvin Kamara on Monday night against those Ravens. Michael Thomas officially on IR, folks. He is out. But someone that could be back in today is Jarvis Landry. Derek, let's get your quick thoughts. Any thoughts about that Chris Olave, that passing attack for the Saints? No Michael Thomas. Jarvis Landry is someone probably on waivers. Looked good early on in the season. Any thoughts about maybe scooping him up?
Yeah, well, I don't really mind that offense there. Olave is the guy for sure, but Landry provides some potential upside. Again, if you're struggling with the Tom Kennedys out there, then you really need to look at someone like Landry on Monday night. That could be, it's a 47.5 over under. I mean, they're expecting some points there in New Orleans, and Andy Dalton can sling it, and so it went at times. He can sling it, so sure. Take a look at Landry. He provides some upside, and compare it to what you've got, which in some cases it's really slim pickings out there. So give him a look for sure.
And what's the most important thing about Andy Dalton, Bobby?
He's a ginger, and that's what we love on this show, baby. Keeping it real 24/7. All right. Corey Davis is out today. Obviously, I think this is important with the Elijah Moore situation being a problem in New York. We saw Garrett Wilson have a very strong game. I do like Garrett Wilson in this matchup as well against Buffalo. I know they do get Tre'Davious White back, but they'll be down stud middle linebacker Matt Milano in this game. So there's something worth noting. Maybe you could Garrett Wilson's okay as a wide receiver 3 this week. The Bucks still injured some places. Russell Gage, Cameron Brate are out today. Cade Otton had a very, very bad game, but remember, he had a touchdown called back last week. So if you're looking for the Tom Kennedy of tight ends, maybe it's Cade Otton. Get him back in your lineups against those Rams defense. All right. Another under the radar, Jahan Dotson out today. J.D. McKissick as well. I think that's good news. Antonio Gibson, I actually do like this week as an RB2. I think he will monopolize that running back receiving role with J.D. McKissick out, so that's underrated as well. Jumping over to some defensive injuries. Antoine Winfield, safety for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is out today. That's good news for that Rams, up the middle. Tyler Higbee, I've talked about previously, is starting to see his role dialed back in the receiving game. Does expected to block a little bit more, so there's something there. A.J. Terrell out for the Falcons today. That's good news for Josh Palmer. I think he might be someone that we'd like to get in our lineups. Jacoby Awuzie, the stud cornerback, and Mike Hilton as well. 2 of the top 3 cornerbacks for the Bengals are out today. That's good news for DJ Moore, who's at the hot hand right now today. Jordan Poyer, also safety. A lot the middle of the field for the Bills with Milano and Jordan Poyer out today. Could mean some nice things for Garrett Wilson, of course, against the Buffalo Bills and the Jets matchup. All right, jumping down to Devontae Campbell, stud linebacker for the Green Bay Packers, is out today. Slight bump for those Lions running back maybe, but overall should be an interesting matchup there. Dalvin Tomlinson, stud defensive tackle for the Vikings, is out today. That is a slight bump for the Commanders, Brian Robinson, and also Antonio Gibson. Marshawn Lattimore just called out before, but Matt is out. That's good news for those receivers, Devin Duvernay, Robinson, maybe even sprinkle in Isaiah Likely, who gets a bump for Marshawn Lattimore out. And, of course, Cole Holcomb, who's like the main stud linebacker for the Washington Commanders, is out today. That is good news for that rushing attack for the Minnesota Vikings. We do have some notable returns, by the way, folks. I want to get you guys' thoughts on this. Cam Akers, James Conner, Landry, and Thomas are both out. Sorry, I should have taken that out. Lazard is back in. Swift should play today. Cam Akers. DeAndre Carter is in, and Cordell Patterson. So I think CPAT's the one I like to talk about. But, Matt, Derek, do you have any thoughts about CPAT's return? Are you starting him this week right off the bat in his matchup?
I'm not starting him if I have a better option, but I'm uneasy setting him because he just tends to, really go off at when we don't expect him to. Tyler Algiers, he's been all right. He's kind of come into his own a little bit. This is going to water that down a bit. But so I'm not sure if he'll be on a snap count. We're talking about Cordell. I'm not sure he'll be on a snap count or not. But he can bust at any time. Again, I'm going to sit him because I kind of want to see how the workload plays out and if he's truly healthy. But if I see a touchdown on my bench, with him there, it doesn't surprise me either.
Matt, any thoughts about any of the returning players? Didn't really get your thoughts on those guys with CPAT, Cam Akers, Landry. Any of those guys kind of speak your interest this week as a start? Or are you going to take a wait and see approach for most of these guys?
So Patterson's going to have to be a runner to be valuable because the Falcons just don't throw the ball enough. And it could, to me, this is going to be a game that's all about Austin Eckler. Probably some Gerald Everett. We like Palmer, but I don't know that Atlanta's going to hang around a long time in this game. Patterson's an old running back by NFL standards. He's not Tom Brady old, Derek, but he is running back old, which means that he's probably in running back years older than Tom Brady. And he's coming off an injury. So I don't know that I start him right now, but if you're like Derek's home league, right, and you've got real concerns and you've got real holes, then he's a guy that you have to start. You don't even have to consider it. You just get him in there because he's starting running back in the NFL. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of his age. And if you look at last year, he started off really, really, really well last year, and then he tapered off. And I don't know. I think that has probably something to do with his body getting beat up, and he's just tired. So I don't know how much he's going to benefit your fantasy lineup. But I will say that the return of Lazard is positive. A slot receiver, a touchdown guy, a guy that Rodgers trusts. So to me, that's the most important back end that you have on your list. And even though you have Cam Akers on there twice, I'm going to ignore him both times.
Yeah, I should have shown that. That should have been behind the scenes only. That's my fault. So we also have a couple questions coming in here for tough question. DJ Moore is bottled up. Could Terrence Marshall Jr. outscore Joshua Palmer? Of course, Marshall with the trade of Robbie Anderson. Also, they have Higgins, who's another receiver there, is not going to be playing today. Marshall got a bunch of work last week and finally shined through. This guy was at LSU, played that Justin Jefferson role the year after, played very well in that offense too. So I think he was someone that people were high on as a rookie, fell behind a little bit. I don't know if I would really take Marshall over Palmer today, but Matt, what's your thoughts on that situation?
I think he's going to have another decent game, but I'm going to start Palmer over Marshall for sure.
Derek?
Yeah, short answer to Isaac's question is yes. I included Terrence Marshall in both the waiver wire article and the target trends article that I had this week. 9 targets last week, outperforming his season to date. Shows that he can bring the workload. If Moore's bottled up, I have some trust in him. The Falcons were really open to wideouts. Give the points to wideouts. The Bengals are kind of the same boat, although a much better defense than the Falcons overall. But there's still points to be had by wideouts there. And as Bobby just said, 2 of their DBs are out this week. So can he? Yes, for sure. Do I start him over Palmer? I probably don't. For all the reasons we've said before with Palmer and that matchup against the Falcons, I'm going to start Palmer. But I'm definitely it would not surprise me at all to see Marshall outscore Palmer by day's end.
I just like if we have Josh Palmer. I'm going to go back to it again. If you have Josh Palmer on your team and you could not play him this week, what are we doing? Why is he even on your team? So this is one of those weeks where Josh Palmer, this is the time. No Allen, no Williams. You have the best matchup. No start. The best cover corner on the Falcons is AJ Terrell. He's not available. If Palmer does not get it done this week for you as a wide receiver 2 or like a borderline, like a flex play, then you can just drop him because then you're never going to be able to know when to start this guy because this is it. This is the matchup of the week for him. All right, Kyle's got a question for us here. Evan Ingram over Cade Otton this week. Hold Dolchich. So it's a 2-part. Let's start with the first part. Evan Ingram or Otton this week, Matt? What's your thoughts?
Ingram for sure over Otton. And I would have to know why you're holding Dulcich. Who are you holding him over? Is there an option on the waiver wire that you're considering picking up? But Ingram over Otten, I don't think that's close.
Derek?
Yeah, agreed. Ingram here. Tom Brady. I think one of the big reasons why there's many of them. One being age, Matt, but one of the big reasons why he's underperforming this year is his lack of production at tight end. Cameron Brate being out, I think it really and of course Gronk is not there, and when you saw Gronk, that he just opened up that offense, and he doesn't have that, and Otten just hasn't become what they need him to be. So yeah, I agree. This is an easy Ingram over Otten to me. The second part of that question, Dulcich, yes, I'm definitely holding him. He has a potential to work himself up into the either tier 2 or tier 3 tight end rest of season, in my opinion. Kind of coming out of nowhere. The Broncos that offense is starting to show some life. He's a big reason why they are. He's getting the good targets. He's getting the work. He's coming through. I'm holding Dulcich through the bye for sure.
It probably has a lot to do with the airplane high knees from Russell Wilson.
It might be. It might be.
He's getting more and more loose.
That is just a hard fact that we cannot, unfortunately, dispute. So I'm going to actually go Evan Ingram here this week too. So the one thing I did note, like Evan Ingram is not your typical tight end either. Like he's utilized more like a slot receiver in this offense. We've saw with Doug Peterson way back in this day with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Evan Ingram's last week, he was actually, up there in routes run in this offense too. So I like in the matchup for the Raiders are they funnel most of their passing game to the middle of the field. They're better against perimeter receivers versus slot receivers, and I think that also helps with the tight end. So I'm actually going to go Evan Ingram over Otten, which means I like Dulcich as a hold. Like there's not a lot of teams in the NFL that feature their tight end like a glorified slot receiver, and the Broncos are doing that with Dulcich. He's out there running a bunch of routes, playing in the slot a decent amount. And listen, it's very hard to find guys who they don't even care about his blocking. They're like, just go out there and run routes. And I think that's fantastic for his fantasy value. So I'm going to hold on to Dulcich, but I'm going to start Evan Ingram this week. Isaac's got another question, 12-team PPR. Who is more droppable, the Brandon Cooks or Darren Waller? His backup tight end is Evan Ingram. Do you feel comfortable starting Evan Ingram as your weekly guy to drop Waller, or would you drop Brandon Cooks? Let's go to you, Matt, first.
Well, right now, I think in Yahoo leagues, you can move Brandon Cooks to your IR slot because he's officially out. So you may be able to protect from dropping either one of them at this point. But right now, as much as I hate to say it, I think Darren Waller is the droppable player. He just does not play football.
Derek?
Drop them both. See, go out on the wire and pick someone up that you can use, because right now you can't use either one of these guys.
You can't pay for that analysis, Bob.
I'm telling you. It's just there's got to be someone on the waiver wire that you can at least get something from than these two guys. It's unfortunate both have such high potential. For various reasons, they're just not there. We're in week 9. You need to get ready for the playoffs. You need to make the playoffs, get yourself ready for the playoffs. If you're holding on to these guys, don't hold on much longer. We're just, these are the guys that you're going to either try to package as a second player in a trade, or just go ahead and drop them and pick someone else up that you can actually use.
And Bob, if Derek didn't just earn a 10% bonus, I don't know how to earn one. Drop them both. I
honestly, unfortunately, he didn't. Sorry, I was like, we'll give you 5. That's the best I could do right now on the spot. But I'll run it up corporate to see what we can do for that 10% bump. But Isaac, at first, I need to see what your receivers are like, because listen, Brandon Cooks does have so if you go over to Razzball.com, we do have rest of season slot first wide strength of schedules, and the one thing you're going to notice is that they actually have, Houston has it leans more to the perimeter, 63%. It's above average rest of season, but I don't know what Brandon Cooks I'm going to get rest of season. Like Brandon Cooks didn't play this week. He wasn't hurt. He just didn't play because he was upset with the team that he didn't get traded. Now, what kind of guy are we going to get? Number one, the Texans have one win. They are not competitive. Brandon Cooks clearly does not want to be there. So, like, how much effort is he going to put out there when already this season he has not been good? So I don't even care about Brandon Cooks, really. I was dead wrong. I have a lot of Brandon Cooks. I am dead wrong about Brandon Cooks this season. He's probably my biggest L on the year so far. And I honestly don't really care. He hasn't produced much anyway. I mean, after the first couple of weeks, he has been terrible for fantasy. In half PPR, getting you 8 points a week on a very uninspiring passing attack. Darren Waller, I can at least justify that he's a difference maker at the position. I understand that Darren Waller, Derek might be right. You could drop both because at this point, Darren Waller just can't get over these hamstring injuries. Plus, keep in mind, this is a new offense. This is a brand new offense with Josh McDaniels. He has barely played in it. So, like, how do we feel comfortable about him mastering this offense, being in the right spots, being on the same page with Derek Carr in a brand new offense he's barely played in all year, and we're already in week 9. So I might agree with Derek that he dropped both, but I would lean Brandon Cooks because of this position scarcity of Darren Waller for that one. Any final thoughts, team, or are we good with that? I think we're good.
No, agree. Totally agree.
All right. Yeah, so basically, I think this week, I know we talk a little bit about streamers starts before we get into it. I'm waiting. By the way, we have a new anime donkey buy, sell, hold video. By the way, I always love how I never thought in my life that I would be talking about anime donkey videos and that would be appropriate. But unfortunately at Razzball.com, we do have anime donkey videos. So we're actually going to take a quick break, let the comments roll back in. Guys, think really quickly about some streamers. We're going to talk streamers. After this, we're going to take a quick commercial break where our anime doc will be back in just a couple minutes. Enjoy the buy, sell, hold for a week.
Hey, welcome to another wonderful week of fantasy football. Breakbuster. Fantasy football. Hey, mate. I'm hunting zombies. Have you seen any zombies? I don't think so. By Keenan Allen. Mike Williams is zombie. Big Mike? No, he's no zombie, mate. Mike is hurt. Keenan Allen? Now he might be a zombie. Yeah, we thought Keenan Allen was dead, but it seems he might spring back to life after the Chargers' Week 8 bye. He's had time to get fully healthy, and now Justin Herbert will pepper him with targets in Williams' absence. Need more brain custard. I hope you put that brain on the bobby. Sell. Michael Carter. Oh, no, mate. I think I might be a zombie now. You thank me later. Breece Hall. Now he's a guy that isn't coming back from the dead this year, which has everyone excited for Michael Carter's season. But the Jets are playing over their heads, and their new arrival, James Robinson, will continue to become a larger factor in the run game moving forward. So, I'm hunting zombies as a zombie? What a fantastic ploy! Hold. Rashad Bateman. Arms up, mate. Those are my arms, mate. How do you get them? Dumb luck. Speaking of dumb, dropping Rashad Bateman would qualify. The Ravens' young wideout was in the midst of a breakout prior to his foot injury. The kid still has top 15 fantasy receiving upside in Lamar Jackson's high-powered offense. You're going to love this, zombie donkey. Arms on the bobby. And arms of a Barbie.
All right, of course, Rashad Bateman, thank you, Anime Donkey. Always interesting. What's cooking in the background over there as well. Of course, Rashad Bateman has since been put on IR, ending his season. But you can just slap in some Devin Duvernay if you want in there as well. But I always find it interesting what's cooking in the kitchen at Razzball.com. Let's see what we got. We got Kyle. Another question here. 10-team, half PPR, 2 flex. Devin Duvernay or Terrence Marshall. I think just pick a second flex. My thing is this is a slam dunk for me. It's Devin Duvernay. Derek, let's go to you first.
Yeah, I agree. I mentioned, like I said, I do like Marshall, and I wouldn't be surprised if he, puts up some numbers that would be playable. But yeah, Duvernay for me.
Matt?
I am with Duvernay as well, and Rudy Gamble is here for the Devin Duvernay love. That's
yeah? I like it. That is good. I think the other thing I want to talk quickly about too, I want to bring up just some weather stuff here because I know the Jets game in the Meadowlands, East Rutherford, New Jersey, I believe is there's some rain for that game. Just want to check in on the latest. Doesn't seem fine. Seems light rain. I think that's okay as well. I don't think there's any other notable rain in weather impacted games today. Do you guys hear anything other than that? Because I think I only had the Meadowlands game and I also had a second game. But is there anything else you guys heard?
No major weather concerns anywhere.
Chicago would be the one that I would look at, but I haven't seen anything that says
Bucks Rams, that was the other one. In Tampa today, I think there was something going on. But let me just check real quick to see what the update is. Because I feel like these light rain ones, they always say it's going to be rain, and then nothing happens. Yeah, I think we're fine.
Plus, you have a question there as you're the resident expert. There's a question there for you, Bob, right above where you have it highlighted.
What? Oh, need an expert opinion. Nice. Start Dobbs in the early game flex in full PPR or Andrews and likely whichever guy starts on Monday Night Football. So I think the likely situation seems to be pretty. I think the Andrews not going to play. He's out. So it's likely in the flex. But, man, Dobbs, I guess my question is do you feel like you're a favorite in this matchup or do you need like a huge monster performance? Whoever put it in there.
Big favorite.
Big favorite? All right, then I would just take the likely points because I feel like he's going to be set. Dobbs, I feel like against Detroit could have a big game, but he's also got he's got no floor. 0 is his floor. So I think if I'm the favorite, I want to take the security of likely. I'll take likely in that one. What about you, Derek?
I like your analysis. Yeah.
This is for both of you. Yeah, all right, cool. All right, good stuff.
For truth be told, this is kind of an argument Matt and I were having. I say argument, but we were debating this last night for our joint team. We are the heavy favorite. We already have a little bit of a cushion because of Goddard the other day. So, we don't expect to be playing from behind by the end of the day, but it's really more just what's the better play, more the safer play. And which is kind of what you lent your explanation to. So I think Bobby is showing that he is the resident expert, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So here's one for me. I actually have a pretty interesting start-sit dilemma. I have Deontay Foreman, Leonard Fournette, and Cordell Patterson this week as my 3 running backs I need to start 2. What are your guys' thoughts? Derek first.
We talked about Patterson. I think the safe decision for you is, let's just go back to just the way you said. Do you expect to be a favorite in this matchup, or is it a toss up? So I think you just I think you sit Patterson. You just really need to take the volume. Take the points, the floors that you expect, and we just don't know what we're going to get out of Patterson, and if if you don't have a lot of room to play with in that matchup, in your opinion, then go ahead and take the volume.
This is why I brought this guy to you, Bobby, and said this is the type of guy you need writing for you and being on the podcast. Do you see what he did? He stung you with your own question.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
You can't pay for that.
You can pay for it if you
You
want.
can pay for it. You just can't pay well.
You just gotta pay Derek. Just shoot him a quick Venmo. To say thanks. I got you on that. Alan Lazard is active today, which is good news.
Yep.
And also James Robinson is up as well officially.
Trey, you brought up Michael Carter early on. Is that a name we probably need to start discussing as a weekly must start? Or are the Jets going to start to fall off the cliff that they climbed early in the season? I mean, didn't the guy have – I mean, when Hall and Carter were playing, they were both viable starters. So what happens now that Hall's out and James Robinson with his gimpy knee is the second option? Does that move the volume way up the board for Carter? And by the way, Zach Wilson doesn't really throw the ball that well, so –
yeah, it worries me a little bit. Zach Wilson needs to tighten it up a little. He needs to become more conservative. I think my thought process with Michael Carter is I want to play him in the good matchups. If he has a plus matchup, I'll play him. If he has a tough matchup, I'll fade him. He's probably my flex running back if a bye-week filler. I'm not relying on him as a weekly RB2. I mean, it's just the fact that if you look at his rushing lines, I think he's been over 45 yards basically once this season in rushing. So it's I know Breece Hall was really taking over, but James Robinson, this whole knee thing, man, it just seems like by the way, early on in the season, we talked about injuries. We said one of the biggest fades in fantasy football is fade injured guys coming off serious injuries. And I feel like for the most part, 80% of those have been good, fading those guys. Even Godwin has been very underwhelming this season outside of the top 36 at receiver for half PPR. But Michael Carter, his situation is the Jets offense is all reliant on Zach Wilson not turning the ball over, not putting him in negative game scripts. And even that's the case. I mean, he had 7 targets last week against New England, and it's just not – he doesn't really go anywhere. It's 7 targets at 35 yards. But I do agree. I think he's in the mix every week. What are your guys' thoughts on Michael Carter?
Yeah, I agree. That with Hall, there was a nice 1-2 punch there for a little bit. But the Jets offense as a whole, to me, I've seen it's just taken a step back. Between the ears with Elijah Moore and the injuries. Of course, today they're facing a really tough Bills team. So I'm not even going to base this argument on today facing the Bills, just overall in general. We saw early on when they were thriving that there were some offensive weapons besides just Breece Hall. And right now we're not seeing that at all, which lends me to believe that the defenses can focus on stopping, what weapons are there. And if that's the running backs, Robinson and Carter, and let Zach Wilson beat us. I think that's going to be a game script that we're going to see from a number of the Jets opponents, and that just spells not a lot of confidence in that running game. So I am going to look to fade either of these guys as much as possible.
So Bob, do you trade right now? If you owned Michael Carter, would you trade him for CPAT 1-for-1?
I don't think you can get that trade. I think CPAT is just – I personally have a different viewpoint on CPAT. He's super explosive. The one thing the Falcons offense does is they run the football, and they also stick to the run no matter what. And CPAT has looked amazing when he has – I think in the first 3 games, he was over 20 fantasy points. He's explosive. I don't think you can get that deal. If you could, great. I think a more realistic Michael Carter trade – maybe could be Raheem Mostert type player. I think at this point, if I have Carter and I've been playing, I would just keep him on my team and just watch. There's still question marks. I think if I have Carter, I'm not really looking to trade him necessarily. I just want to see him perform in good matchups. This week, not the greatest matchup. He probably, the Bills offense might boat race this Jets team, but the good thing about the Jets, though, is their defense is competent. So, their games should always be somewhat competitive. As long as Zach Wilson get his shit together and put them in better game scripts, I think Carter will be fine. But like I said, it's going to be matchup dependent, RB2 flex every single week. That's how I feel about Michael Carter.
So, Derek, would you start him in your home league if you added him as your RB5?
Today, no.
Considering what the Green Bay running backs did to Buffalo last week?
No, I would not. He would be the odd man out for me today.
Okay. Well, I think that's all we got for today, folks. I mean, right now I'm scrolling through. We talked about all the injuries. We have the weather updates. I think we're good there. I guess let's talk quickly before we close the show. Let's talk some streamers. I think this week we haven't really got a chance to talk about some highlights, some deep guys. Let's start at the quarterback position. Matt, do you have a streamer that maybe a lot of people aren't thinking about that you would start this week at quarterback?
Yep, absolutely. Ryan Tannehill.
Okay.
He's going to have to throw. We talked about that, right? If the Chiefs get out to an early lead, which game script says they normally do, they probably will. Tannehill is against the number 2 worst ranked passing defense in the league. Now, they have a bad pass defense because people have to throw on them all day because they're chasing the Chiefs. But I like Tannehill after a week off. I think he could have played last week, but they held him out, and they knew that they weren't going to make Malik Willis do anything but hand the ball to Derrick Henry. So I like Tannehill this week. And if you want to go just a slight bit deeper, we've mentioned him on this show as well. I don't mind with the Cincinnati injuries, PJ Walker.
Okay. Derek?
Yeah, I had Tannehill as well. I think that's a good matchup for him if he get healthy. I think he's probably had this game circled on his injury calendar for a while, try to get back and look really good against a Chiefs defense that will allow him to score. But 2 other quarterbacks I like. I do like Geno Smith today. He's been up and down. I think he has an up game today. And then also even a little bit deeper, Taylor Heineke. I think there's an opportunity with Minnesota for many of the Commanders players to have decent games. We've seen a resurgence, perhaps, of Antonio Gibson in this offense, which is a little bit surprising. With Brian Robinson there, I think Terry McLaurin will have a pretty good game. So I think Taylor Heineke is a streamer option as well today.
I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence. I know he's a little bit more owned, but I think Trevor Lawrence this week against the Raiders is actually a fun one. I know last week I thought the Raiders versus the Saints were going to be a good matchup, and then the Raiders offense decided to not come. I doubt that Derek Carr and those guys are not going to show up again this week. It could happen, but I do think that game could be a quiet shootout. I do like Trevor Lawrence in that one. Derek, let's go down to you for a running back. Do you have a running back streamer this week?
Yeah, well, not many. I don't think there's many to choose from. I see you look down the running back line and all the obvious running back plays are there, and many of them should have real nice matchups. And then it kind of drops off to just so many question marks. I've said a number of times today, volume. So my streamer running back play is a volume play in Deion Jackson. I'm using him in my home league. I don't love the matchup by any means, but volume for running backs, and I'll take the volume guy as a streaming play.
All right, Matt.
Both of these guys are going to be owned, but I like Kenyon Drake on Monday night for volume, for his ability to catch, and then I also like A.J. Dillon to get his second rushing touchdown of the season. I think it's going to be one of those between the 20s games for Aaron Jones. I think they're going to come out and they're going to do that old Bill Walsh game script, first 15 plays, and Aaron Jones is going to get down into the red zone, if not inside the 10, and then A.J. Dillon's going to come in and take that touchdown on the first drive.
All right. I think I got it. So I think my obvious one is Isaiah Pacheco. I think if you out of the bye, maybe you're kind of feeling a little more optimistic. I think if the Chiefs kind of handle business, that Pacheco will get a lot of more touches in the second half and he can run out the clock a little bit. Also, Jeff Wilson. I actually don't think I'm intrigued by what can happen there if he could even take over a little bit more of that role. But if Miami gets out to a lead against Chicago, I could see Jeff Wilson closing out the game instead of Raheem Mostert. So those would be 2 as well. Any wide receivers? Derek, was kicked down to you first.
Yeah, I'm going to go real deep in this one. We talked with the Bears offense, Mooney and Claypool. I predict Dante Pettis is in the end zone this week. The Dolphins are porous against wide receivers, especially wideouts. 21 points per game from wideouts, and that's where Pettis lives. I think a lot of attention for Mooney and Claypool from the Dolphins leaves Pettis open for a score. So yes, it's a deep reach. I admit, but I like Dante Pettis today.
Nice, Matt.
I don't want to get you freaked out, Bob, but you appear to have a zombie behind you in the other room. Don't turn and look now, but there is one back there, or there has been one.
Okay.
My streamer wide receiver is Khalif Raymond. I mentioned him earlier. He may not find the end zone, but I think he's going to have volume today indoors against a Packers defense that has not lived up to their hype yet.
You know what? Maybe I might be wrong on this one, but let's go. I'm going to say Demarcus Robinson against New Orleans. I think that's a deeper name that. I know Duvernay's kind of got that gadget role going on. They use him in the passing game, but he's not a traditional wide receiver. They're not going to run him out for 8 to 10 targets. Robinson was the guy who did get that. You just brought up Marshawn Lattimore is out. So Robinson could be someone who I find can get me that wide receiver 3 double-digit fantasy points, maybe in PPR, which isn't a lot. But if I'm desperate, I'm okay with DeMarcus Robinson against New Orleans. Last one, let's talk about some tight ends. Any streamer at the tight end position? Let's go to you, Matt, first.
Yeah, I'm on the Isaiah Likely hill, and I'm not going to step off of it.
All right, nice.
But if you have to pick somebody outside of Likely, give me Conklin for the Jets.
Nice call.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I'm going to team my tight end with my quarterback streamer and Logan Thomas. I think Logan Thomas has a chance to get in the end zone today in a little bit of volume. He's a player that can perform, but he's also finds himself out of the lineup for various reasons. But I like him today, hooking up with Taylor Heineke against the Vikings.
Yeah, Logan Thomas is near and dear to my heart because when he broke out, he was like my preseason for like deep sleeper, and he broke out. So that's always nice. I don't think Gerald Everett's even a streamer anymore, but I like Gerald Everett this week a lot against Arizona. If you can get him or not. Yeah, no, not Arizona. Sorry. Chargers are playing Atlanta. So if you get him against Atlanta, I like him a lot too. Outside of that, maybe like a Hayden Hurst against Carolina. I think that he's someone that I would like to stream as well in this matchup. Any final thoughts, guys? Any final thoughts before we close the show in regards to defense, anything else like that? Anything before week 9 you want to close on? Now let's go to you first.
Stream Jacksonville against the Raiders. I think the Raiders still have some weird hangover going on. I like Jacksonville, and I like the Seattle kicker for 15 fantasy points today.
Ooh, I got. That's my guy. I love it.
Yeah, I like the Jacksonville defense as well. Raiders coming cross country, second week in a row. After that, abysmal showing in New Orleans. I think the Jaguars can, in fact, the Raiders are on the road, are favored in this game. I don't understand why. I think Jacksonville could take that defense, play tough, and help the offense there. I don't really. Matt can tell you if we ever have a kicker decision, I don't even voice into that discussion. I don't care about kickers. We shouldn't even talk about kickers, in my opinion. So.
Well,
I'll take Matt's recommendation there.
I love Jason Myers this week. Love Younghoe Koo, and also the kicker for the Panthers. I like this week against Cincinnati. I do like those 3 matchups. As defenses, I probably would say that I actually might be on the opposite of you in this, Derek. So I'll be interested to see. I actually like Minnesota's pass rush against Washington, maybe causing a turnover or 2, maybe a couple sacks. So I'll be interested to see how that goes because I do like your recommendation of Taylor Heineke, but I think I like Minnesota's defense as well. But boys, this is it. That's in the books. Week 9 of the Razzball Fantasy Start Sit Show is in the books. I appreciate you for both being on. Make sure you guys subscribe hit the bell, leave a comment. We do appreciate you guys jumping on the show, but enjoy week 9. Once again, I'm your host, Bobby Lamarco. You can follow me at Bobby Lamarco on Twitter. You can also find Matt Styles at Styles08. And then, of course, Derek at Derek_Favorite. By the way, and I appreciate you spelling it the way it sounds, because like Brett Favre, like he always, that whole thing has been a disaster forever. And, well, that's near either there. He's also a disaster now. But anyway, all right, we're out of here. Before I start getting into the political stuff, we are out of here.